What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another week of the Star Wars Exchanges and/or After Show. We're here again reviewing episode 11 this week. Wow, another good episode. Just no surprises here, and/or as good as ever. Of course, looking forward to reviewing this one. Mike, though, how are you going this week?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm just quarantining because I have COVID, so that's been kind of a strain to worry about. But you know what? Whenever I'm hunkered down, I just watch Star Wars. So I've been doing my Clone Wars chronological marathon because guess what? We talked about it ad nauseum last week. Gunji's coming back. Gunji is
Let's
coming back to Star
go.
Wars. So
Can't
we
wait to
talked
see
about it ad
Gundy
nauseum
again.
during
Yeah.
Mike's Minute last week. So I'm prepping for his return to the fandom conversations, and I'm just rewatching the Clone Wars chronologically in order to then binge Bad Batch the first season and then watch season 2 as it's coming out. So I'm like very very excited for that time period because it'll be like 12 13 episodes and 13 weeks of Bad Batch. So I'm like looking forward to that. And I mean it's it's one chapter is closing in Star Wars and another one is opening. That's going to be Bad Batch. So I'm prepping myself, even though I have COVID, so I haven't been going anywhere, which is very depressing. But Clone Wars seriously has just helped me get through it, and I'm reaching I'm reaching the point of where I'm not that sick, where I just have to quarantine because I'm so contagious. So thankfully everything's all good. So yeah, but Ari, I've been quarantining, chilling here in my room. What's been going on with you?
Well, first of all, thanks for doing the podcast, even with having COVID. We appreciate that.
Oh yeah,
The
of
other
course.
thing, Mike, you tried to ratio me this week when on an old podcast post, we said, what are you more excited for, Andor or Bad Batch? And I got in the comments, like 3-4 months ago, whenever this was, and I said Bad Batch season 2. And yeah, I understand that comment may not be aging that well at this point in time. But yeah, anyway, so it's just very rich coming from you saying that you're all excited for Bad Batch after the ratio that you pulled on me this
No,
week.
I wasn't trying to ratio you for your answers because you spelled something like what word did you spell wrong? That was just funny.
Oh, I don't know. But yeah, right. Oh, was that what it was about? Oh, I misunderstood your whole
Yeah,
comment
I
then.
did. Actually, I did mean Bad Batch, but it's just I mean, look, I'm so into Andor, and that's why we're doing the Andor after show. But I'm just saying, it's okay if I like try to ratio you, but I'm also still looking for the Bad Batch. Like I didn't say, oh, Bad Batch is gonna suck. But yeah, you've been
Yeah.
ratioed. I'm
I
sorry.
said heart to decide, but probs Bad Batch.
Heart.
It was very hard to decide.
HART. Yeah,
H.
he spelled it like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah. Anyway, but no, I am doing good. It's been a good
Mhm.
week. We're going to summer here in Australia, as I so lovely. I
As he's
reminded you
been
in a
saying
lovely
every
way
single
last
week.
week. Yeah, no, it's good though. Bit of time off work, bit of time off college and stuff. So it's good. But yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this week's Andor episode. It wasn't as crazy and action filled as last week's, but it's quite a somber episode. Pretty I don't know, kind of dour in a good way though. I feel like it was, besides that sort of action sequence with Luthen towards the end of the episode. By the way, shout out to people who and I'm being the biggest hypocrite because I do this all the time. Shout out to people that don't dissect every frame of trailers nowadays because I used to do that all the time. But with Andor, I decided I'm going to watch all the trailers once and that's it. I'll be honest, I did watch the first one a few times just because we watched it at Celebration and then I didn't really like it's a big experience. I had to watch it again to really dissect it. Not dissect it, but experience it. Anyway, and I've seen a lot of people complaining about how they wish that whole Luthen sequence, what like the whole thing wasn't shown on in the trailer. But I was like, honestly, I had no idea what was going to happen because I don't even remember seeing that in the trailer. But and when he did that thing with the lasers going out of the ship,
Right.
I like had a moment of like, wow, when I saw people being like, this was cool, but we already saw it in the trailer. So shout out to people that don't go through every frame of the trailers like I used to. And I probably will do for the Mando season
Right.
3 in the Ahsoka trailer as well. Although I haven't done it
Yes.
for Mando yet, but I think when Ahsoka comes around, I'm gonna have to. Anyway, this is a big ramble. Mike, what did you think of Andor episode 11?
Dude, first of all, I agree with what you said because I didn't even know the Rester cruiser scene was even linked with that with his ship. I forgot what do they call
Yeah.
it? the Fondor. I didn't even know it was going to be the same scene. But no, absolutely agree with you. I absolutely enjoyed this episode. Yeah, I didn't expect it to be as good as, episode 10 or even 9, but I did expect, because this is, remember everyone, this is part 1 of the finale. Next week is part 2. This is part 1, and it's usually how it goes. Go back to Clone Wars or Rebels, and whenever they had those think of Twilight of the Apprentice. We could be on a verge of a Twilight the Apprentice type episode where it's like the first one, it's like, okay, all this running around, cool. It's the setup. It's a very good episode, but it's like it's all this setup. But then the second part's where crap hits the fan, and I think this is absolutely going to happen here. I think this is the case because I mean, there's so much things to be tied up, and
I was actually thinking of I forgot the name of the episode, but the episode before Twilight of the Apprentice Part 1. I was thinking more of it in that sense because the Twilight of the Apprentice episodes, I sort of see that as one episode, but I see what you're saying. Anyway, because in that episode previous, it's like all they're doing is like hunting down the spiders on Adelon or whatever it is. But then there is the last scene in that episode and the last scene in this episode, I think parallel actually quite a lot. I haven't even thought about this until now, but like that somber feeling of like the quiet moment before the storm, it feels like. You remember, I think it's like Ezra is like lying on the ground and he sees like the Morai bird, like
eerie
flying around.
Feeling.
And it was the same in this. It was like, let's go our separate ways, and then he's just looking out at the ocean. So anyway, just a thought, but yeah,
that's a really good thought, and I mean, I totally agree with that too. But yeah, you could view it in that point or view it as part, because I'm with you. I don't even view Spark Rebellion as part 1, part 2. It's like one thing for me.
It's one thing,
but that's just how the conversations have gone. But anyways, I thought this was a really good episode. I mean, it was tense when it needed to be, and we actually got some funny moments in it. And it's people have been crying all season long. This doesn't feel like Star Wars, and where are the aliens? And then you got this like really funky alien scene in front of you that felt so Star Wars
so
and George Lucas like. So I'm like, okay, this is
that was the most camp the show had been yet.
Yeah,
like the most pulpy it had ever gone. When he was like, me, let's go to the shippy ship or whatever he was saying. I was like, what the F is happening right now?
It felt like we were reading one of the High Republic novels by Daniel Jose Older, like that type of campy almost. You know how it has those moments? But I mean, like it just felt very Star Wars, and I'm like, okay, it's gonna please some people here. But yeah, overall, I was like in it, and unfortunately, we lost Marva this episode, and it got sad, and as Arya said, somber. And yeah, it was somber towards the end, and I just felt like the feeling that I got, and I've also, because I've been in quarantine, I've been playing my VR thing, and I played not Fallen Order, Vader Immortal. And there's this moment that happens that you have to like put your hand on a lever and jettison the ship into hyperspace, launch the ship into hyperspace. And it's just this thrilling feeling that you get. And that's exactly the thrilling feeling that I got at the end with Melshi and Cassian, like this bro hug and them going the separate ways. I was like, all right, let's go. Even though it's a very sad moment, I was like, let's go. I was just like, I just felt so amped up. And it was like a very similar feeling of me launching myself into hyperspace. But yeah. And then the Saul scene with Luthen, which we'll talk about in a bit. Oh my God. I'm so mad that I didn't update this graphic. I'm telling you, I've been very out of it. I didn't update this graphic, but
we're gonna keep Andy Serkis around for just all our podcasts in the future. He's just permanently
until we find him
up here.
Until we find where Kino is and if he's alive. But yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed this episode. Oh man, just everything. Lots of things to get into. So yeah. Any final thoughts or any thoughts on the episode?
I mean, I agree with you, like with the aliens. I absolutely loved that. And I was thinking, okay, can we finally stop the conversations that Andor doesn't have a lot of aliens? Because I mean, just to ramble about it for 30 seconds here. If you look at the original trilogy, the aliens are treated pretty much the same as they are in this show. They're really background characters. Outside of maybe Chewie, it's like there's not a lot going on, like at least in A New Hope, because you're on the Death Star. How many aliens do we see on the Death Star? Pretty sure it's 0, right? It's like even on when they do the trench run, how many aliens are fighting in Rogue Squadron or soon to be Rogue Squadron? 0, exactly. So it's like, I don't know. I always thought it was kind of a silly complaint because I'm like, well, if you break it down, it's like, yeah, obviously there's not going to be any aliens in the prison. I remember thinking in the 3-episode premiere, I was like, damn, like there's some really cool aliens in the background here. I don't know. I always thought I understood the complaint, but I was like, yeah. So when this happened, I was like, thank God. Let's put that conversation to rest because it's getting a little bit tiresome.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, so much to like in this episode. I'm just like skimming through it, being like, yeah, the Mon Mothma scenes were fantastic. As you said, Saw Gerrera was so good. We'll get into that. Absolutely loved the Mr. Beast challenge at the start with Cassian and Melshi holding on for dear life. That was good fun. And then yeah, that was the best end to any episode, I think. Even better than it was better than last week's. That was the best end to any episode of the series, I would say. Just like the feelings it evoked. I like went back and rewatched it a few times. I was like, wow, this is so powerful. I love this. I even went back and was going on YouTube looking up like old Melshi scenes in Rogue One and stuff because I was like, I want to see more of this. And man, I found out how he dies in Rogue One, and it's kind of sad. It's like he's trying to save someone on the ground, and then he gets shot like on his shoulder, and then he gets shot in his leg, and then he runs and takes cover. But then he keeps fighting. But then in the next time we see him, he's just passed out on the floor and presumed dead, right? It's just like, oh, damn.
Like anyway, Marva.
Yeah.
Sorry. Too soon.
Yeah. That was extremely distasteful, Mike.
So sorry. You know, I don't have any taste right now, so.
It's true. Also, shout out to B2 just for being awesome. I love that droid so much.
B2 emo.
But yeah. Let's break it all down. So obviously, yeah, we do start off with Melshi and Andor doing that holding onto the cliff, Mr. Beast challenge. But in all seriousness, it was cool to see that, yeah, like they got through that first part, but there's still so much more to go. You know, they're really not even close yet, it feels like. But you know, toward the end of the episode, that moment where Melshi says how many got out, and Cassian's like, not enough. That moment wouldn't have hit the same if we didn't get this scene at the start. So. Yeah, I loved that, and I loved seeing them. You know, the aliens, all that. Yeah, let's talk about this opening sequence with them and them getting away in the old quad jumper. What do you think of it?
Okay, so a couple things. I thought Cassian saying quad jumper was the most unreal thing for me because the person that we've heard say it before is Ray, and it's like that quad jumper, and then hearing Cassian say it was so funny. I was like, wow, I mean, we had seen the ship before, I think, earlier in the series, but I just never thought anyone would say it again just because it was that obscure, it felt like.
Yeah.
And like that opening sequence, like we see a TIE Reaper, and that's like the transport ship for Death Troopers, and I thought that was very interesting. So I've been waiting for my Death Trooper fix here because they were all over in the trailers and we haven't seen them. So like I said, they're gonna
next episode,
everything's gonna hit the fan and they're gonna be part of that mess. We'll see them, but it was cool to see that. Like again, I'm sure many people did, but I equated the prison to Alcatraz, and it's like, you know, those infamous prisoners that escaped, they were never found. So I'm like, oh man, this is pretty cool that like, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's like almost like they were touching in that and be like, look at how these prisoners that escaped this island prison and that, you know, they like actually made it to the shore. And I love that they kept it ominous where we don't know about the other prisoners if they ever even made it to shore. So I'm like, dang, there was a lot of them. And if it's only those two, that's eerie. All those people just escaped to drown. Like how many of them would have rather just lived out their days, you know, doing all that work in that station, you know, rather than just drowning in the ocean. We don't know. But it was kind of funny to me seeing Cassian and Melshi run around in those white jumpsuits, because I got this like eerie flashback to Boba Fett in his white jumpsuit in the sands of Tatooine in the beginning.
Boba Fett. Bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, I
could just hear it in my head. I was just, oh man.
Oh yeah. Ari, actually, update for anybody that's listened to at the beginning of season 2 or first episode back. Ari update. Ari, why don't you tell him real quick?
Yeah, well, after 3 months of contemplation and you know, a lot of motivation from Mike, I have finally watched the Lego Summer Vacation. And it was fun. I'll give you a 10-second review. It was alright. It was pretty funny. I loved the moment where Boba came in on the slave one and the music was like Boba Fett. Bum, 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 bum. Because honestly, it threw me back to the Boba Fett era in a good way, obviously. that era
Yeah.
was interesting, but it made me nostalgic in a fun way. But yeah,
Oh,
Lego
yeah,
Summer
for sure.
Vacation was good. Obi-Wan was very funny.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that reminded me of Book of Boba Fett for some reason, and I thought this was I think a good way to start off the episode. Like you said, it like connected. It made like that ending scene for me all the more impactful. Just seeing that they were on this like treacherous escape together, and then like I said, I thought the whole scene with the aliens was funny, just because I think and not that this show needed it, but it was just like it reminded us of what universe we're in. So it was funny to get that like kind of
Yeah.
jarring moment with the aliens. It's like, oh yeah, this is a Star Wars show. It's not an HBO
It did
series.
feel very Star Wars. It reminds me of that guy who in Phantom Menace, that just these
Oh,
alien species who Jar Jar goes
yeah,
and eats the thing, and then the guy's like, "Oh, no, oh, no, no,"
yeah,
and
with
then
the
yeah,
knife or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, remind me of that guy. Anyway, that's my random reference for the week.
Okay.
Um, but let's talk about what's happening on Ferrix, which we finally have remembered the name of that planet because it's in the episode title, Daughter of Ferrix.
Woo.
So yeah, Marva has passed away off screen, which is very interesting choice. I kind of like it though. Like, when have we ever seen a Star Wars character die of like old age outside of like Yoda, obviously? Like, I can't think of any. So I just thought, okay, kind of interesting that they did that in a good way. And then yeah, seeing B2 old, he's real down bad about it, which is not fun to watch. But it was so cute, that scene with Cassian's friend when he agreed to like stay the night with him. I loved that. Um, and yeah, it looks like, so yeah, pretty much to sum it all up, they're gonna hold a funeral for Marva, but that's going to be the trap for Cassian, and so it looks like it's all going to go down on Ferrix in episode 12, the finale. What do you think of the whole Marva situation and what's happening on Ferrix?
Um, I thought that it was chilling with Dedra green lighting the funeral, because we all
Yeah,
expected like, no, shut this funeral down. We don't want people
yeah,
blockading the streets. We don't want noise. We don't want, we just don't want people gathering together. And it reminded me a lot of Lost Stars, of their burial rituals when the Empire was beginning to talk about it. It reminded me of Lost Stars, where the lead character, one of the lead characters, her name's Sienna Ree, she has to go back and mourn someone in her family, and there's all this ritual stuff that goes into it, and like the Empire's involved in watching. I feel, if I remember correctly, so it just reminded me of that. I was like, oh, like that's a little, like, now they're getting into like someone's mourning a loss of someone, communities mourning the loss of Marva, and the Empire's like snooping their noses, and so I thought it was very eerie. And yeah, they just like greenlit the funeral, at least Dedra did, and she's like, no, we gotta watch them. Let's put them on the stage and watch them, from afar.
yeah.
So yeah, that was very eerie. I thought the whole brick thing was very interesting. People have said, I've seen on like on social media commentary being like, damn, that's very sad that Cassian is not going to get that. He was turned into dust, but never into molder. So that was into brick, like how they were saying their burial
True.
rituals. I'm like,
Yeah,
damn,
I didn't even
he
think of
did turn
that. Yeah.
he did turn to dust, and they didn't turn him into a brick. Very sad. But yeah, I thought this all was great. It was oh, sorry, did that come off distasteful?
A little
I'm
bit,
just being, oh,
but
sorry, Cassian.
no,
Um,
no, it was funny. I was kind of just like, oh, it kind of made me a bit sad, to be honest.
oh, okay, all right, a little sad with a little humor. I get it.
Sad moment on the podcast. Anyway, go
Oh
on.
man,
Let's just not talk
yes.
about the bricks of Ferrix anymore. It's getting me a bit teary
Let's
eyed.
talk about the daughters of Ferrix, because I thought we get into Marva's house and getting, look, I am, maybe I'm just, I feel like this show we should have spent a little more time with B2, just because
Yeah,
it's like I
I
really
agree.
liked him in the first episodes with him and Cassie, and like I absolutely love that. So I feel like we should have seen a bit more of him, or like, even though I thought last week's scenes took away a bit from what was going on at the prison, when they were like just going on Ferrix to update us on some things, and they were alluding to Marva's death. So I wasn't all that surprised this week when she died. I was like, oh, they did it. But I just feel like we should have spent more time with B2 somewhere in between, because I felt very sad for him, but everyone was acting like it was the saddest thing ever. Maybe it's just because it's I forgot what the term is, but just because you just watched it, you're like, oh, B2 feels so sorry, because I do feel sorry for him, but it's just like I felt like if I had a stronger connection with him, I would have been crying on the floor with him, but yeah. And Marva's death. Yeah, she very interesting, because I remember one of the last conversations she had with someone was about like not leaving and staying put and like sticking it up to those like Imperial forces type deal. And I was like, yeah, you go, Marva. And now she's she's gonna be
a true rebel.
She's a true brick. That's what she is. But yeah, she's a true rebel at heart. Sorry, no more brick jokes. But yeah, I thought that was all really good. And that's what was the other point? Oh yeah, by the way, I have to update y'all. So sorry. I will get into this in a second, but there's too many characters here. What's her name? Bix. Last week I said that Bix was out of prison or was out of captivity and that she was walking around.
Yeah.
But I got hold on.
Because I was like, did I hear that from Mike or someone else? But when I was like, hold on, I definitely heard someone tell me she was out of prison, but
don't yell.
Here she is in prison.
Look, I got as a person of color, I do this sometimes. I get my people of color confused, and I thought for some reason my head went off that I was like, oh, it's Bix, and it wasn't Bix. It was what's Vel's girl. Vel's the one that stood back on Adani.
Yeah.
Cinta. Yes, let me write that down. Cinta. It was Cinta that was on Ferrix. So instead of Bix, it was just a cutaway moment that I was like, oh, Bix is out of prison. No, she's not.
Yeah, she is not.
Yeah. Sorry. I apologize.
Speaking of Bix, she does get a scene, and man, it's just I don't know who's playing this character, but what a beautiful acting performance that is from her in the saddest way. But yeah, she is. When the Imperial was like, oh, or else and if I feel like you're not telling me the truth, we're gonna bring back Dr. So and so, and I was like, please no. Like that's how good the performance was, that I was like, don't put this girl through anything more. Like I don't think she could take it. Like it's just, yeah, it's horrible. But hopefully, I want to see Bix have like actually, you know what would be great? I don't know if they want to kill Dedra off, but I would love to see Bix kill Dedra in the next episode. Honestly, like how powerful would that moment be? Anyway, I can see Bix doing some messed up shit to Dedra. Oh, for God's sakes. Anyway. Oh, actually, they say that word in this show. They say that word in this show once, so we're allowed to say it once on the podcast in our run.
But I don't know if you dropped the F word there. You covered it very well, but there we go.
No, I covered it. Anyway, okay. We like to keep, for those wondering, we just like to keep it G-rated. Star Wars is for kids, so should our podcast, just for those wondering. Anyway, let's talk about Vel, because Vel and Mon Mothma have a very interesting sort of arc, I guess, this episode. Vel is sort of just like done with Luthen's crap. She's sort of just like, I need to talk to him, so and so, and I don't know what the name of the character is, but the one running the shop is just like, you'll speak to him when you'll speak to him, and that's not now, sort of. And it's I was kind of feeling Vel's energy of like, just no, like I don't have time for this, like this game that they play where it's like, oh, would you like to buy this, or like, whatever it is.
Right.
I mean, to be fair, I loved in the scene later with Luthen, this is jumping ahead, but the way the girl from the shop and Luthen were talking when he was over the planet, and he's like, oh, like, is it too late to purchase that item? And oh no, another bidders, are like, just the mixed messaging there. It's kind of hard to keep up with, but it's a bit of fun, I will admit.
Oh yeah, you were confused too at that point.
Oh, not confused. I was more just like struggling to keep up with the hidden reading between the lines of what they were saying.
Same. So, and then it ended up just being an actual conversation about.
I don't think it was. I think in my interpretation of it was that Luthen was having second thoughts about leaving. What's the name of the rebel that they're gonna let die?
Krieger.
Yeah, Luthen was having second thoughts about potentially saving Krieger, and that's why I can't remember exactly how they were phrasing what they were saying, but that's what I thought they were saying. And he was like, is it too late? And she's sort of like, don't bother bidding on it, or something like that. I'm probably getting that wrong, but
True.
It was sort of like she was saying, no, don't. And he was like, but should we? because I think after talking to Saw and after Saw being like, we'll get to that scene later, Saw maybe giving Luthen a moment of realization of like, oh, actually, maybe I should not be like this because it's kind of horrible. Anyway, let's stay on Vel and Mon Mothma for a second because Mon Mothma is just broken to pieces. It seems like, and it is seriously heartbreaking. She her daughter is like wanting to. It's sort of rebelling against Mon Mothma in the sense of she is learning all about the traditions of Chandrila, and even though those traditions have maybe not ruined, but really affected Mon Mothma's life negatively in the sense that, she's involved in an arranged marriage with a man that I don't think she cares for. And then that's tearing her apart. But then she's also very conflicted on what to do with this whole money situation. And we talked about this yesterday when we were watching, but I feel like Mon is very ready to give the money up to get the money in order and give the daughter away in a sense, even though it's just a meeting. We all know how that's going to end, but I think what's going to happen is, Luthen has 80 million credits. I'm sure he can spare 400,000 or whatever for, Mon Mothma, because if he knew Mon Mothma is like one of the most important pieces to the puzzle of the rebellion, I'm sure he would spare those credits. And I think Vel is going to get it organized. But I think the barrier we're going to have to overcome is Vel telling Mon Mothma that she was involved with Aldani, which might fracture that relationship. So, yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on that. What do you think?
Yeah, that's pretty much all the thoughts that I had on that. I mean, going back to the shop scene, I thought that was great because it just felt like like I forget that Vel was first involved when we meet her. She's first involved with Luthen, and then it turns out she's related to Mon Mothma, and it's like, oh my god, she's like I don't know what the analogy would be, but she's just like, flip-flopping here and there. So it's like, and not to say that Luthen and Mon Mothma are political rivals or anything, or enemies, but it's just like they both have different ideologies and approaches to combating the Empire, and Mon Mothma's trying to do everything she can on the Senate floor, but
conflicting morals, I think.
So I thought that seeing Vel actually like, playing the part of Aldani and like keeping it low, sneaking Cassian into the group, following his orders, doing everything to the T, was great. And then she's coming here and he's like, oh, you're so lucky he's not here, because you wouldn't know what he'd do to you right now. Look, coming to his basically to his house, to his front, because you're not, code is don't come unless you're called. So I thought that scene was pretty tense. And I was just curious where it was going to go, but we got some cool Easter eggs that Ari and I were pointing out yesterday. There was the Jedi Temple guard mask now.
Oh yeah,
in the collection.
I was actually doing some research. I think it might have been in a previous episode. I need to get a more concrete answer. But I think anyway, we were looking at that, and I was like to Mike, "Have we seen that Jedi Temple mask before?" And he was like, "No." And I didn't think it was, but I think it might have been. I don't know. That shop is just full of everything. And I know we've already seen them, but those like concrete slab things with the mortis hand symbols from Rebels, love those so much, because I feel like we got a closer look at them in this episode, and I was like, that's epic.
That's sick. And I was going crazy because I thought I saw Mayan calendar in there, and that belonged to the Austoin, or belonged to, I guess, my ancestors of the Aztecs of Mexico before we were conquered by Spain. But they had like the calendar there, but I guess in like Star Wars style, and we were like analyzing it, and it looked like the people from Zepho, the Zepho people. I don't know. So I was like, oh my god, that looks so cool, and it's cool that it's in there. And then Ari was like, oh, what if they did it in honor of like the main actor of the show, Diego Luna? And I was like, yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that. So cool shout out there. But that Mon Mothma scene was very eerie because it's like, like she doesn't even have to. I guess it was just like now she doesn't even have to like put up like the front, or like kind of coax her daughter into the idea. She could easily just take the money, and her daughter's following all these traditions and stuff, that she could just easily be like, oh yeah, there you go, this is part of the tradition, and before we thought it might be
Yeah.
like a challenge where she would have to like manipulate her mind or whatever, which is already why you and I were like, no, that's not gonna happen. But now her daughter's
Yeah.
into that like cultist stuff
Yeah.
almost that she
Now
could just
it's
easily
pretty
be like,
much like, yeah.
yeah,
The choice now is like, do I just let her continue on the path she's following, or do I pull her out of it? And I think
right,
the reason it's so challenging is because, the Mon Mothma is fighting for the future with her rebellion, right? And I'm like, well, what good is that future if, in order to fight for it, you sort of discard it in the sense, because her daughter is the future, right? And it's like, well, if you allow this to happen, you're allowing that future to sort of follow the ways of the past that you didn't agree with, which is not exactly what you're fighting for, but it's certainly an aspect. So I think that's why it's such like a conflict within herself, sort of thinking like, yeah, it's almost like, do I step in and just stop? I think it's going to get to the point where she's going to be about to let it happen, and then Vel's going to come in and be like, you know what, just take this money, please.
right,
And then she'll be like, how'd you get this? And it'll be like, don't worry about it.
and I feel like she will get in real big trouble with Luthen, or
Yeah.
But I think I did. This is just I've been saying this for the past couple weeks, but I just love how this series has totally humanized Mon Mothma, right?
Oh yeah.
And we were talking about before that, like, they kind of took like the Luke Skywalker approach. That was your analogy. They
Yeah.
kind of like took that Luke Skywalker approach where we're starting to see all the flaws, and you're like, I didn't want to see that, but now that I see it, it's like, oh wow, it's
Yeah.
So I actually really like that this week it furthered that, and they went into like, yeah, we've been hearing about she like taking funds out and
Mm.
switching bank accounts and all this stuff, but now we're actually seeing how much it's affected her, and she's like, now they're watching, and you just see her
Yeah.
crying, and I
It's
saw someone on
affecting her
Twitter being like,
family as well. Like,
right,
yeah.
and I saw
Yeah.
someone on Twitter being like, what if while Andor is supposed to finish, with the second season, what if they did a Mon Mothma spin-off series just taking
Wow.
place during the events of the original trilogy? And I was like, I would be so down. Do
I
a
would,
one
I'd,
season
I'd
with
watch
that.
that.
I'd
Yeah.
I'd so watch that. Each arc, an arc in A New Hope, an arc in Empire, an arc in Return. So down for that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's saying a lot as well, because people these days are throwing out the most ridiculous Star Wars series ideas. Not talking about anyone in particular, but yeah,
I don't
I
know,
would
Ari.
be incredibly down for a Mon Mothma series.
I don't know, Ari. I really want to see a General Grievous series, but I digress.
I'm good. I'm
But
good.
I'm good. I like to see a Kid Fisto series. I like to see that someday.
Give him a Tales of the Jedi episode, but
Yeah, we'll be fine.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that the series is doing a great job with Genevieve O'Reilly, and I think I'm
Oh,
so
she's
grateful that
phenomenal. Yeah.
George Lucas like got her in Revenge of the
Mm,
Sith, and even though that scene's been deleted, it's just been canonized, right?
yeah.
And
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
love that the people in Rogue One were like, nah, like, oh, like, let's ignore the prequels and do something else. Like, they had their actress there, and I just love the journey that we've been
Mhm.
on with this actress of Genevieve O'Reilly, where Rebels was premiering it, and she was still there. She was down to do the voice and stuff. So it just makes I have so much love for this actress and for the character that I'm like,
Yeah.
I want more Mon Mothma. So yeah, all these scenes were great, and I just can't wait to see how it all ties up next week, because what are we thinking now? Do you think what's the path here? So you think Val is going to give the funds to Mon Mothma?
Yeah. I think, yeah, she'll be so close to going through with introducing her to the thug's son, and then Vel's going to come in and save the day.
The thug's
I
son.
think we'll see. I
Yeah.
forgot his name, but something we forgot to talk about when. Oh, actually, we haven't even got there with Cassian yet, so it's all good. Let's move on to Cyril Khan though. He has a brief scene where pretty much all we need to know is that he is going to go to Ferrix because his old mate from the security team has let him know that Cassian's mum has died and there's going to be a funeral. So Cyril Khan will definitely be showing up. He'll be there. Dedra will be there. Bix, Cassian, like a large portion of the cast is going to be on Ferrix for the finale, which is going to be very interesting to see. But Cyril Khan, I said this a few weeks ago, I'm kind of just so with that character. Maybe it's going to turn around in the finale, but I'm sort of like, I wouldn't mind seeing like if they like really just discarded him in a hilarious way, sort of similar to Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi. Like if he was like about to make his move on Cassian, and Cassian sort of just like turns around and just like shoots him, and he's like, oh, whatever. And like that's just the end of Cyril Khan, because God, that character is holding the show back at times. But anyway, do you have any thoughts on that, or can we move
I don't
on?
know. I was really hoping for another serial scene this week, but we missed out. But I think that I actually kind of like the scene where he was where his mom just I laugh because that's just the character that Karn is. It's like, boo, you suck. Let's just laugh at you. And as you said, maybe a throwaway death like that. When his mom totally did some great, you found out you got some, you found out that your glory days are over or something, and she like laughed at him and like walked away. And I was like, yeah, laugh at him. I don't know. Like there's a moment that his mom, a line that his mom said that totally dissed him. And his whole career. So I started laughing. So
he's honestly
I don't
kind
know.
of like the Grand Inquisitor in the Obi-Wan series. He's just a bit of a clown.
Oh my god! You guys should have heard the conversations before we hit record.
Anyway,
but yeah, I don't really care for Cyril Karn. I think that the most interesting part of his story was at the beginning, and if he died, I mean, I don't know how it's gonna wrap up here, but I'm just not interested. He's like the element of the series where I'm like, great. Yeah. Here's another scene with him. Like it just feels like we kill time when we're killing all that time when he was at the workplace. I'm like, let's get back to the others,
I will say, speaking of deaths, I do think we'll kind of touch on this more later. I hope to see Dedra, and maybe not so much Dedra, but I would like to see Bix kill her, to be honest. And Dedra and Cyril, I think it would be good if both of them can die. I really hope Luthen stays on for season 2. I understand that he should die at some point in this series, but he's such a good character. It would be such a shame to throw him away now. I think you got to give him at least another half of a season. Like you can kill him halfway through the next season or something like that. But let's talk about Cassian for a second, because he goes into his old apartment on Space Florida, as people are calling it, and I'm confused about the living. Yeah, I'm confused about the living situation. Like he's gone in, all his stuff is still there, but then some couple are sleeping on the bed. It's very confusing, but he's still got all his credits, his blaster, and of course Nemec's manifesto in a little safe on the top of one of the shelves. So hopefully we hear some more of Nemec's manifesto, or even just to know that he's he's still like listening and reading and engaging with that. It's just cool to know. But yeah, and like they made a pretty clear point to show that it's still there. He's still got it. Like yeah,
that's right. I forgot that he has Nemec's manifesto. I really got to rewatch the series before the finale for real.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing this week. That's my little project.
There's just so many details in this series that's just like it's undeniably good. And one of those details is in Space Miami. I think this is so funny. This is a little moment that I just had a ramble about, but this goes back to the aliens things feeling about Star Wars. And I'm just throwing this in here, but when we have these like Earth-like birds doing like stuff that George Lucas would do with creatures in the original trilogy, I mean, or even the prequels, where you get like a fixated shot of just animals playing around for a few seconds. The one that always comes to my mind is Return of the Jedi. Like you get this very long shot of Jabba's palace, and then in the foreground you have like these creatures playing around, or like that damn sand lizard that just sticks its tongue out and does something goofy. And that's something that we got here, where like there's these Earth-like birds playing around, and I'm like, the attention to detail in this show, and this goes to say is, but the Nemec's manifest and everything, the detail in the show is just everything. Either it's like a stupid Star Wars nod like that, or something is more tangible and more important, like the manifest. So I'm just like, man, I just love analyzing this series. But yeah, shout out Space Miami. Love that place.
All right, we've got 3 more scenes to sort of talk about here. So let's talk about Saw Gerrera, because last time he was in this show, I was praising that scene endlessly because it was fantastic. And once again, it delivered on an even higher level, I thought. I was talking to Mike yesterday. I really didn't like Forrest Whitaker's portrayal of Saw in Rogue One. I thought it was extremely intense and a bit camp, but also not. It was just obviously Star Wars is camp, but I thought in that moment it was kind of strange. Anyway, point is, I'm absolutely loving him in this series. pretty much everything Saw Gerrera is in besides Rogue One, I really love him in. Like even in Rebels, I thought he was great. But it's starting to. I'm excited to rewatch Rogue One after the series because I think I'll see that performance differently and it'll make more sense in my head. But anyways, this was a fantastic scene. Luthen is sort of he's struggling to show trust in anyone. We already sort of know that about him though, and he's sort of showing that Saw that like I've got people everywhere, and he has to. I mean, he does have to trust Saw here because he tells him, "Well, I've got someone in the ISB. He's told me that if like this operation is not going to work. I forgot the name again, but if you join them, you're just going to die as well. So don't join them." And he's like, "How do you know I won't tell him?" And he's like, "I don't." And then that scene where he's like, Saw goes for the greater good or something like that. And Luthen's like, yeah, you can call whatever you want. And Saw's like, let's call it war.
Yeah, right.
I was like, wow, I just got chills thinking about that. But yeah.
And that echoes his scene in Rebels where he's like, we're fighting a war that the rebellion doesn't even. Oh no, Ezra says that where he's like, we're fighting a war that the rebellion doesn't even know that or say that exists yet. In his conversations with Saw, if I remember correctly, and it's just like Saw. I think Saw is always ahead of the game. Where even where we meet him in Clone Wars, he's like, he's just always ahead of his enemy and stuff. And I mean, he was ahead of the Separatists then, and then he becomes ahead of the Empire now. And so it's just like, I think that this whole sequence was very, first of all, very tense. And I think that you were saying about Saw's, or the Forrest's performance in Rogue One. I think that we got a fracture of that in here, or a fraction of it, where I think we saw a glimmer into Saw's craziness because it's like Luthen was like, "You see how you are now? That's how the ISB would be if they found out." And it's like, oh my god, that is crazy. So I absolutely also love, like, this is just a retrospective thing, but I love that each time we meet Saw, we kind of meet a different Saw. Like there's one that's in the thick of battle, getting Wookiees. Then it's just always a different mindset, but on like a like I'm just on. He knows
they're
where
all
he's
in
going,
very
but
different time periods as well. Like Bad Batch is right after the Clone Wars. Clone Wars is during the
Bad
Clone
Batch
Wars.
as well.
Fallen Order is 5 years into the Empire. This is 15 years into the Empire. Rebels is like a year or two before Rogue One, and then Rogue One, obviously, it's like he's really spread himself out.
He really has, and he's fighting for the cause. And I'm very curious as to in Rebels time, like I wonder. I think he'll pop up in season 2. Don't you think, Saw?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I can't wait to see how different he looks and acts then. But I thought, and that whole scene, oh my god! But when Luthen, he's like, oh, I bet you. Saul's like, I bet you have people here, huh? He's like, yeah, I do. It's 2 tubes. He just throws 2 tubes, his best buddy under the freaking.
I loved that so much because we know that those two are like close or something like that. At least we see it in Rebels and a bit in Rogue One. I just loved how 2 Tubes kind of like defended himself. He's like, no, like he's lying. Like I'm your brother. Kind of like he didn't say that, but that was kind of the energy I was feeling. I was like, I loved the brotherly bond in this episode from both Melshi and Cassian and 2 Tubes and Saw, which is something I didn't know I needed. I didn't see it coming, but I absolutely loved the moment that it happened.
It was hilarious.
Yeah. No, for sure. Also, I loved when they were approaching, or Luthen was approaching the camp, and he's like getting inspected. And he's like, "What's all this about?" And 2 Tubes just like, he's in a mood or like something like that.
Oh yeah, right.
And I was like, that feels very classic Saw to me. But yeah, that was a fantastic scene. And then we kind of touched on it. Okay.
Did it feel like to you though that did you for a second believe it was 2 Tubes?
You've cut out a bit, but I know what you were going to say. It does. For a second there, I did think it was going to be that. Sorry, you cut out, but I knew what you were asking. For a second there, I did think it, but then like as soon as like 2 Tubes reacted the way he did, I was like, "There's no way. There's no way."
Okay.
But they got me like.
I went back to that scene. Right. I went back to that intro scene with them where he was like, "Oh, Saw's in a mood today." So I was like, "Oh, is he really his informant here?" So I don't know. That kind of like threw me off for a second, but then I laughed about it. I was like, "Oh no, it's just Luthen being an idiot right now."
Yeah, exactly. And then yeah, we already touched on it earlier, but the scene with Luthen almost getting drawn into the tractor beam. He's talking to his I don't know what the relationship is, but the worker on in his shop at Coruscant. They're sort of having a dialogue. I interpreted it as them talking about potentially going and helping the rebel that's about to get him and his 30 men killed. Also, just a random thought on this. I thought this whole sequence was awesome, except something I found a little goofy. It felt very Star Wars, to be fair, but the way they were like, oh, he's getting away. All right, turn the tractor beam up to level 3. Oh, he's still getting away. All right, level 4. It's like, guys, just max out the tractor beam. All right, like seriously, just pull him in. I don't know, but it felt a little goofy, but I liked it. And also, when those two
I
TIE
always
fighters came flying in, it kind of similar to during the Aldani arc. I was like, no, like TIE fighters, no way, like they're gonna come and get him. Like I seriously felt like the presence of the TIE fighters as like a threat, which was cool. And then seeing Luthen take them out was so satisfying.
Yeah. No, I agree. This arrestor cruiser scene was great because I feel like I've been what's an appropriate term? I just been underwhelmed with its usage because I should have brought it out. Oh, that would have been great. I have the little Hot Wheels starship of it, and it's it was supposed to come out in Solo, and I bought it part of that line, and it does come out in Solo, but not in the way that it was supposed to be. And it's just like in a little tiny hologram moment in a recruiting video rather, and that's what makes Han. He's like, there's just a little moment, and Han's like, oh shoot, the Empire's, I can sign up, whatever. But I mean, and as we know, there's a delete scene in Solo where Han's TIE fighter like spirals out of control and he crashes aboard one of them. So to finally see one in live action, because this was like a concept for like A New Hope, to see one, and it kind of sucks because the creator of it, Colin Cantwell, he passed away. So to finally see it, I was like so invested in what they were doing, and I'm like, oh my god, this is a powerful ship. Where it's like, I guess this is the usage of it. I don't know. I get nerdy with this type of stuff. As Ari was saying with the whole like level 5 level, I was like interested. I'm like, okay, like I don't know. I like get fixated on stuff like that. But what a great scene. I thought it felt obviously very Star Wars, and as you said, when those TIE fighters came like screaming out, I was like, yeah, we're watching the Star Wars show. You just it's not that you need moments like that, but then again, you need moments like that to like get you back into like that Star Wars. Like, yeah, we had like that Star Wars alien goofy moment, but this was more of like a Star Wars like yeah moment. So this was this scene for me, and I mean, I just love that. One of the things that I always um have hated about Star Wars, it's like not hated, but it's just a little gripe that I'm like, so because again, I get like I love all this like space stuff that I'm like, wait, so if a ship gets caught by a tractor beam, that's it, like they can't escape it. So I love that Luthen is always prepared. He's prepared whether in his dialogues, his monologues, his arguments, and even ship, like he's just combat ready. It's like I just feel like he's just that guy that like Inspector Gadget that has every tool for anything and everything.
Yeah, he's
So
almost like a
the fact that
doomsday
it played out
prepper.
here, exactly, like he's a doomsday prepper. Like
He's so ready
don't
for.
you
He was
don't
so
you ever
ready
know
for
that
that.
person?
Yeah. No, for
I
real.
just feel like I mean, oh, man, I could gush about that all day just because I love people like him. It's like, yeah, you have anything for everything. So and that's whole sequence of him shooting back those like little pellets at the dish. Oh my god, the sound design was great. The visuals were great. You'd think that this would look fake at all or anything for a show. No, it looks so real. It's so impressive. Again, not to this Kenobi, but during that finale, that little chase scene, I'm like, what is this like VR game that I'm watching right now? And this looks so incredibly real, and I just was like in the moment felt like I was in there with Luthen, be like, let's get out of here. So very cool moment, and just one of the highlights of the episode for sure. And as you said, I didn't even like when the whole laser thing happened. I was so impressed by it. I didn't care that I saw it in the trailers already. Like I was just like, oh my god, that was so cool. Like I didn't watch that trailer like 80 times, and watch that happen. I was like, wow, what a cool moment. And he didn't even like the way he took out one fighter, then the other. Like, oh, that was great. So yeah, it's a little kid moment for me, but I was just gushing. It was eye candy.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on to the final scene of the episode, which was my favorite scene and probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole show, but also just like, yeah, the best ending to any episode yet. Cassian gets the call from one of the, or he reaches out to someone on Ferrix who relays the news that his mother has obviously died. And by the way, the moment he's consuming that information, the people are already talking about this, as they should. The performance of Diego Luna was so incredible. Like, I felt like I was riding that wave of emotion with him, you know? Like, it was really fantastic. And then yeah, that, and it was just honestly heartbreaking. But yeah, the cinematography here was so beautiful. Some of those wide shots and even the close ups with, you know, his face and then the beach and the sun behind him was just flawless. But yeah, something I found interesting was Melchi being like, "So it's all good," and Cassian's like, "Yep, it's all good." I was kind of like, "Oh, I would have thought maybe they'd have a little moment, but I guess not." Cassian's all about business right now. Something I was also thinking was, has Cassian told Melchi his real name yet? Because I want to see the moment where he's like, "My name's not Keeve," or whatever it is that he said. It's actually Cassian. I think that would be cool. But something I told you last night, which stood out to me a lot in this scene, was you can really see Cassian's shift in character from the first few episodes to now, because the way Melchi is saying, you know, people need to know about this. Like, we need to spread the message and, you know, split up. I can totally see Cassian at the start of the series being like, no, that's a hopeless fight. No one fights the Empire. We're just lucky that we got away type thing. But now he's like, yeah, no, you're right. Like, we do need to tell. He doesn't say that, but it's sort of the look on his face. So yeah, I love this scene. It was so beautiful. What else was there? Just the bro hug was heartwarming. Like that was awesome. And then yeah, that final shot. Obviously, people are drawing all sorts of parallels to Rogue One, and as they should. But so beautiful, so beautiful.
Yeah,
But yeah, and
I
the
think
way he says, sorry, my last point. The way he says, "Oh, Marva, tell her that she would have been proud of me as well." I like that
yeah,
is just gut wrenching. Really good writing though. But yeah,
and I think well, I think, and as you said, that linkage to Rogue One of Jyn Erso being like, my father would, or your father, when he
yeah,
says your father would have been proud of you, it's like, oh man.
yeah,
So I absolutely love that. But I like absolutely love that bro hug, because in Star Wars it's always like, until next
yeah,
time, or may the force be
yeah,
with you.
yeah,
And it was like, it felt like a real moment. And I was like, yes, I love this
yeah.
like genuineness in Star Wars, where it's not like, may the force be
Mm.
with you. It's like,
It was a
you know,
proper human
it was
embrace, you know.
exactly.
Yeah,
So and this, yeah, the whole visuals at the end here, I'm like, yeah, Niamos has been a vibrant place where we can dance and whatever, and get caught by scout, or I'm sorry, shore
short
troopers or
troopers.
whatever they're
Yeah,
called. But I this this whole sequence of him coming back to, this is why I think the whole few episodes were very important. It's like we had to have like this connection to Ferrix and the characters there, and that one guy that like initially helped out Cassian, and going back to him, and Cassian trying to relay that message. I was like, oh man, that sucks, because the entire time I'm like, Marva's dead, Cassian. I wonder who's gonna tell him, how he's gonna find out. And the way
yeah,
they brought it back, like through his initial escape, I was like, okay, that's great. So yeah,
yeah,
I thought this all around was really good, and I'm like, it, as you said, it like shows you how much Cassian has changed, but it's also like it's also not to the point where he changes, where it's like he becomes, because he has his own arc in Rogue One, so it's like they're respecting that by like, oh, he didn't tell Melchi about his mom, because it's like,
mm,
he's still very, to himself, lone wolf energy, where it's like,
yeah.
and I think Marva's death is even going to further that narrative, that pursuit of just him being by himself. So yeah, all in all, very good ending, very good
Mm.
episode.
100%. And let's give the overall ratings, and just briefly say just one wild prediction for the next episode, and how long we think the episode's going to go for.
Oh
Exactly.
my
How it's going to show up on Disney Plus. We did this for Obi-Wan and I got it right, so I'm going to try and go 2 for 2 for Star Wars series this year. But yeah, you go first.
Okay, so runtime is going to be 57 minutes, locking in my answer.
Yeah.
And one crazy prediction, it's not as, before it would be the easy answer would be cameos or something, but I think I actually think Cassie might kill Luthen. I don't know. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Wow. Okay.
Do I really believe in it? No, but I'm gonna throw it out there as a prediction.
But you can claim it next week if
I can
it
claim it next
happens.
week if I'm right. I could
Yeah.
claim it. And
Wow.
overall
Okay.
rating.
I like that. I like that.
You like
prediction.
that?
Yeah.
It's a crazy prediction. Do I think it's gonna happen? Probably not, but it's a prediction.
Yeah.
Do I? And the overall rating for this episode, I would probably go an 8 out of 10. A solid 8 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna say for this episode, 9 out of 10. Really, really loved it. And what? Oh yeah, runtime for next week. I already said this to Mike yesterday. 63 minutes. I'm locking it in. It's gonna be the longest episode yet. So yeah, just we'll see next week. When it's 63 minutes, everyone will be, oh, Ari, we should just ask you every week, and I'll say yes, you should.
Oh my god.
Anyway, and my wild prediction, I don't know if this is wild, but I said it during the episode. I'll just double down on it. I think Bix is gonna kill Dedra. So
okay,
yeah,
and I want to correct my.
That's what I'm hoping for, almost.
Very well, and I want to correct my answer. I gave this episode an 8.5, not 8. I don't know why I said 8. It's the COVID in me. I'm sorry, y'all, but I like that prediction. 8.5, by the way, for the record. Let the record show.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty crazy prediction. And you know what's also crazy is that you can subscribe to this YouTube channel right now for free.
Yeah,
and also you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Make sure to rate us on those 2 platforms because it helps us get to more people, and we want more people to join us for the Andor finale. And also for YouTube, give us a thumbs up because, again, same concept, helps us get to more people. So please do so. We've been enjoying Andor a lot, and we've been enjoying it talking to you guys. So we have 1 episode left of season 1 of Andor, and man, we're gonna have to take a break for a while of talking Andor. So I'm very freaking upset about it. Like, I'm gonna be sad not having Andor. So, and by the way, Andor Standy will be back. Just he's in another room right now quarantining as well, so he'll be back. But Ari, any last thoughts on Andor? And
well, I mean, just reiterate what you said. You guys know how the algorithms work. We'd appreciate you guys helping us out. We have, I know people might be thinking usually we do the live streams for the finales of these shows, but to be TBD on that, to be decided. We're not 100% sure yet, depending on a few different things. But yeah, stay tuned. Obviously, we'll do coverage. Hopefully not locked in, but we should get Parks on board as well for that as well. So that'll be fun. Follow our podcast page at the SW Exchange for all updates regarding our plans, and just, it's just a fun page to follow. So why wouldn't you? But also, follow me at @StarWars_exchange on Instagram. Where can people follow you, Mike?
all_Star Wars. And enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday that's coming up next week. It's
all Americans have fun.
That's right. Sorry, sorry. I'm sorry. If you're in America, enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday. But seriously, 1 episode left of Andor. Let's make it good, y'all. Let's make it good.
Yeah,
things are gonna hit the fan. So yes.
All right.
And that's it.
Well, thanks for watching and listening and all that. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week. May the Force be with you. Catch you later.
Adios.